Welcome to the Doghouse, your inside look at the Cleveland Browns, presented by DraftPot.com. I'm Andy McNamara, alongside our Browns insider from WKYC Sports in Cleveland, Matt Florjancic. You can follow us on Twitter at AndyMC81, at Matt Florjancic. Find us just about everywhere on iHeartRadio, on iTunes, on our free The Doghouse app. Just go to the Google Play Store for Android devices and type in The Doghouse. Get a free app. As well as, of course, on Spreaker.com. Matt, we have a lot to talk about. It's spread out. There's some Browns talk, of course. The coaching staff is finalized, which is great news. There were two, well, I'd say amazing conference championships based on two different reasons leading to the Super Bowl matchup and the Senior Bowl with some potential future Cleveland Browns draft pick happening as we speak. How are you, sir?
Better now that I know that the Browns actually have scouts on the ground in Mobile to interview and look at these guys at practice.
Yeah, very un-Ray Farmer-like. So it looks like the Browns are going back to actually attending events, actually thinking that maybe seeing somebody live and interviewing them is a good idea. Jimmy Haslam was there too. What did you make of that, of Jimmy being down there? Took the scouts to dinner, but do you think he might have been doing a little scouting himself?
I think that was more of trying to get see how the lay of the land was with the scouting, and also trying to interview personnel guys.
Right, we saw that.
The head personnel guy, which they pretty much dumped the title of general manager and pretty much made like a vice president of player personnel. So I think that's why Jimmy was down there, hush, hush, wink, wink, nod, nod type deal. We're taking the scouts out to dinner, but what it really was it was all about business. Jimmy Haslam and people of his ilk don't make trips for the sake of making trips. They go there with a purpose, and they're ready to do business, and that's what he was doing in Mobile. Yeah,
especially if it's to Mobile. Typically, you just don't go there for fun. Not outside the Senior Bowl, no disrespect to Mobile, but not necessarily a hotspot for vacationers and billionaires. So Jimmy Haslam there. Still have to figure out who that VP of personnel is going to be. But outside of that, Matt, we have Ray Horton. He's officially back. We have all the assistants look like they're in place. Chris Tabor survives another head coaching change. The Teflon Don, John Gotti, had nothing on Chris Tabor. Untouchable, apparently. He sticks around. Now that everybody's in place, what's your overall take on this Browns staff heading into 2016?
Very, very seasoned, which was pretty much the opposite of what Mike Pettin had when he had a lot of guys who were first-time position coaches or first-time coordinators. That is not the case with the staff that Hugh Jackson put together. He's put together a very experienced staff. Still have a couple of assistants on the defensive side to iron out, but of the coaches that he hired last week, he brought well over 160 to 170 years of coaching experience into the organization, and that is never a bad thing when you have that kind of experience, because it means that you have been around, not only just because you've been around a long time, but you've had to know what you're doing for the better part of 3 decades to stay around that long. There are, by my count, 3 guys on that coaching staff now that have over 30 years of experience. That's almost unheard of.
It's huge, and really it kind of goes back to the pre-Mike Pettin. You don't have to go too far back, but to Chudzinski, who had Norv Turner, very experienced, Ray Horton, top-notch. Like the coordinators on paper, that coaching staff under Chudzinski was a slam dunk. The difference being is that Hugh Jackson is not a first-time head coach, did it for that 1 year under Oakland, and just seems to have, I don't know, Matt, just a little bit more of that it factor. Like when you hear him speak, when you see him, you buy in. Like after that press conference, I was ready to jump on and play for Hugh Jackson. I can only imagine what the players are going to be like there. So all in all, like, I guess we'll have to see what Ray Horton 2.0 in Cleveland looks like, because the stats overall look good, but we remember all those fourth quarter collapses and all that. So I'm a little wary on the Ray Horton side of things. But all in all, this is the most optimistic I've heard Browns fans who've got after us on Twitter and just chatting with them have been in a long time, and myself too, and you too. You're a realist on this Browns organization, and you seem pretty positive, which gives me hope.
I am truthfully very positive about the moves that the Browns have made to this point. I'll be even more positive, hopefully, around the first weekend of May after I see them get in a couple of talented players in the draft. But, I really like the direction that they've gone to this point. They took a lot of heat for being a team that could never get interviews, much less get their first candidate to sign who they really wanted. They went out there, they were really impressed by Hugh Jackson, and they didn't let him leave. Last time they were really impressed with someone was Doug Moreau, and they let him get on a plane to go to Buffalo to honor an interview. Jimmy learned from his mistake the last time and said, no, you ain't getting on that plane because I'm going to give you this fat contract, and you're going to come coach my football team, and you're going to take us to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackson didn't get on the plane. So that tells me that he's taking this a lot more seriously than before. He went out, got a search committee together. He's turning over a lot of stones to make sure that he turns his franchise into a winner if he can. And by golly, he's going out and getting some really top-quality assistant coaches, guys that have been to the big game and won it. So overall, I am optimistic that the staff is in place. I think the roster has a lot of work that still needs to be done, and I think that's going to take a couple of seasons. But if they're really committed to giving Hugh Jackson the time to coach these guys, I think in a couple of years we could be having some fun games in November and December. Now, will we make the playoffs? I'm not going to guarantee that, but I think there'll be at least meaningful games late in the season, which we haven't been able to say a whole hell of a lot in the last 17 years since they've been back is 99.
No, we haven't. By the way, the Doghouse Twitter question of the week, again, at AndyMC81, at Matt Fleur-Jancic, was this: how many pieces are the Browns away from making the playoffs? You mentioned that elusive playoff word, Matt. How many pieces are the Browns away from making the playoffs? Put a poll out on Twitter. Are we a franchise quarterback away, a great head coach away, a dominant pass rusher away, or too many to count? At AndyMC81, at Matt Fleur-Jancic. We'll get to the poll results a little bit later on. Feel free to still weigh in, so we'll get to those answers in the Barkov. Now, Matt, we heard this week, and we spoke of the inexperienced past Browns coaches. Somehow, some way, Jim O'Neill and anybody associated with him should buy lotto tickets, should buy Powerball tickets, should buy any type of game of chance. Because the former Browns defensive coordinator, who had for 2 years in a row the last ranked run defense, this year a catastrophe from top to bottom, not one redeeming quality, is the new defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers with Chip Kelly. I tweeted out, Matt, I said, oh, you poor 49ers fans. I hope you get ready for a last ranked defense. Like, what is the thought process? Chip Kelly clearly has zero idea of what to do on the defensive side of the ball at the National Football League level, Matt. That is an embarrassment. If you're a 49ers fan, and that organization should be absolutely embarrassed that you get a drinking buddy of Mike Pettin, a glorified high school coordinator, not even a coach, to go to that proud franchise. Wow.
And he goes to a franchise that's arguably less talented defensively than the one he already had, because they're an absolute dearth of talent after all the guys that they either let go or retired on them suddenly. I don't look at this and say that this is a very good situation for anybody. But
except for Jim O'Neill,
San Francisco 49er fan, I'd be really worried right now because this defense still has a lot of pieces that it needs to rebuild, and Jimmy O isn't exactly a guy that inspires great confidence based off of his past performances.
So really, I guess if you do follow the 49ers or are looking ahead, you pick whoever their best pass rushers are, and then get used to them to dropping into coverage and not doing that. That's step one. Yep. That you can pen that in. That's perfect. But Matt, it eats at my soul that Jim O'Neill is getting at least a high six-figure dollar contract again. This man is getting paid. What? I'm beyond words that Jim O'Neill, without Mike Pettin there either. I don't get it.
And John DeFilippo has to go back to being a quarterback coach.
Wow.
That might be the biggest travesty of all, is that Flip had 4,000 plus passing yards and 1,500 or more rushing yards with a combined total of about 7 different guys handling those two jobs, when most teams usually have one each, so 2 total. And he has to go back to being a quarterback coach.
Yeah.
And Jim O'Neill, who was third to worst run defense this year, I think 2 teams ended up finishing a little worse than he did, only because the Steelers really did a number on us through the passing game in Week 17. And the worst run defense from 2 years ago, I don't understand this. I tip my hat to his agent for doing a hell of a job, but I'll stand next to him in line buying the lotto tickets, and I'll stand next to Chris Tabor when the Armageddon hits.
At least Chris Tabor has had success at his job. At least Chris Tabor had a bounce back.
But it's amazing that he survived through 4 coaching regimes.
That is true.
That's the part that's very rare in this business.
Oh, sure. So, thank goodness Jim O'Neill, Mike Penn are out of town. Somebody else's problem. I'm very comfortable with the amount of experience, the amount of talent from the assistant level all the way up through the coordinators, and then the head coach, of course, with Hugh Jackson. He's down in Mobile, Alabama, at the Senior Bowl, along with Sashi Brown, along with Jimmy Haslam. So, Matt, we're going to have part 2 of our quarterback draft watch, our pre-combine draft watch, next week. We wanted to let the Senior Bowl run its course, Senior Bowl practice, going all week, and the game is going to be on January 30th on the NFL Network. But some names to keep an eye on. There's Carson Wentz out of North Dakota State, from the FCS, same conference as Tony Romo, Jimmy Garoppolo. There's also Kevin Hogan. There's Connor Cook, who declined the invitation, which continues to question his leadership abilities and wherewithal. His stock's plummeting. Cody Kessler there. So we'll go over next week that next tier of quarterback. But a quick thought on Carson Wentz. Like, Matt certainly passes the eye test. Just a shade under 6'6", 230 pounds, big arm, confident guy. The only question is, when you come out of the FCS, even if he did play at the highest level there, it wasn't at the true Division I bowl game Ohio State type level. I guess that's the only question, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what he's struggling with right now at the Senior Bowl. I've been listening to reports saying that he does fine with the look test and, passing the ball, but he's erratic when it comes to dealing with pass rush. When the protection breaks down, he gets a little skittish. He's used to being in a run-based offense where, when people stack the box, you've got one-on-one coverage, so he can work against that with no help from a safety over top. So there's a lot of things that he has to learn, and he's really, really green. But that being said, those are moldable things. You can work with that. He's like a lump of clay right now.
Yeah.
You can either mold him into an ashtray or you can mold him into a trophy. It's up to you to figure out how you can mold him if you're going to bring him in. If you don't, then you might miss out on an opportunity to really see someone grow and flourish. From the mock drafts I've seen, I've counted, I think, at least 4 where he's been in the first round discussion, and I saw one that had him going to the Cowboys at number 4
That's
overall,
yeah.
Which completely stunned me. But then again, it's Jerry Jones, and I'm like, dude, think about that for a second, Matt. It's Jerry Jones, okay?
And he got his franchise quarterback from the FCS in the past, right? Tony Romo.
He does crazy stuff around draft day, and he already let his son talk him out of drafting Johnny. I don't think Steven's going to have as much luck this time around.
Well, especially if you have a big quarterback. Quick Johnny note as well, Matt. It seems to be official. Johnny and Colleen Crowley, his girlfriend, Bay, have broken up. Pictures of both are down from their Instagram accounts. I took Johnny's side. I unfollowed Colleen Crowley. I did that in support on Instagram of Johnny. Unfollowed her. I'm backing Johnny up, but they're broken up, and it just the the collapse of Manziel